Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. We're starting our briefing dedicated to rescue operation in Kherson region after the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant dam explosion. Our speakers are Mykola Kaskov, Chief Officer of Rescue Diving Service of Odesa Regional Department of State Emergency Service, Denis Leshik, Rescue Diver, Odesa Regional Department of State Emergency Service, and Ivan Honchar, motorist of Rescue Diving Service of Odesa Regional Department of State Emergency Service. Thank you for being with us today, and I would like to give floor to Mr. Kaskov first. How would you assess consequences of the explosion, and how did you eliminate consequences? So we arrived to the place of evacuation of people. It was really very difficult for us to work there to rescue different people because they were people with disabilities, sick people, and we also had to rescue animals. So that was difficult work. And it was also dangerous work because we were shelled, we were attacked. There were missile strikes, so it was difficult, but we coped with our task. And now I would like to give floor to Denis Leshik. Could you share more details about your work? Because we know about constant shelling of the evacuation teams. So we used a motorboat to get to the place of the disaster, and we also helped the victims of the disaster. We just took them from the roofs of their houses. It took us 2 weeks to work there, and we were under shelling during several days. We were shelled by Russian forces, but we understood that we should continue our work to help our people, because that was our mission. There were people who were in need of our help. That's why we couldn't just leave the place. Could you just tell us about whom you rescued back then? That were mainly elderly people. For example, that was there was an old woman, and she was in a very severe condition. So we had to take her from the 9th floor. She was in difficult condition, and we should refer her to medical workers as soon as possible for her to survive. Were there a lot of injured people, or did they just have some mental condition? Yes, but it was actually difficult from the even psychological point of view. And we also rescued animals. There were a lot of animals. And on our first day, we just examined the place to understand what we would work with. There were cats, dogs, and many other animals. We also just had to take animals off roofs. So they were just crying, and but we had to rescue them. How many people did you evacuate during 2 weeks of your work? Our team evacuated around 100 persons, so we don't have some precise numbers because we didn't have time to calculate everyone. What difficulties did you face apart from shelling? It was difficult to get access to houses to rescue people because there were different levels of water. Sometimes we couldn't get there by motorboat, so we had to use the different boats, and sometimes the current was very strong, and it was difficult for us to get to the places of evacuation. Ivan, as far as I understand, you actually you operated such boats. What challenges did you face? Mainly current. Even when we were able to reach houses, the current was very strong. So taking our boat out of our route, it was very difficult for us to move there because the playgrounds were flooded and they were fenced. There were some edges. Those sharp fences were hidden under the water, and we couldn't see that, and it could damage our boat. Mykola, how did you cooperate with international organizations and volunteers who wrote helped to eliminate the consequences of the disaster and helped to evacuate people? Mainly, we worked with volunteers. We helped them. They helped us back. So we had friendly relations with them. We worked together. They also helped us with animals and people. So they helped us in everything. So we had joint operations. Could you share more details? Did they provide food to you or money? So both food, boats, ropes. So they supported us in everything. I just remember that when it all started, when the water reached Kherson and Kherson region, volunteers started actively raising money to buy boats to rescue people. And one of the journalists watching us online asks about the amount of equipment you lost during that work. During the first day when we were shelled, a lot of rubber boats were injured, were damaged. But we had some other boats that were spared. And on the second day, they shelled our machinery, our equipment. It was the boat and the vehicle. So you were rather lucky, so there were no major losses during the work. During the operation, could you share more details about how you organized your work? Did you travel to the place of evacuation, or did you return every day to Mykolaiv or Odesa? We were in the city of Kherson. We worked since 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we stayed in Kherson overnight. And all the operations were there. We never left Kherson during that period. We have one more question from a journalist. Do you know any cases of looting? Did you see anything? No, we did not see anything, and we do not have such information because there were reports about the people who used that possibility for looting. So when we just evacuated people, the police just verified their IDs, but we do not have any information about looting. So there is the end of air raid alert. So we are now rather safe, conditionally safe. So you evacuated people to a safer place, but you did not control the situation after that. No, after our task was to bring people from point A to point B. The police, the emergency services, other services, ambulance, and volunteers, they dealt with that people further on. So they provided accommodation for people in hotels and kindergartens. You spent quite a lot of time there. Could you remember about some interesting cases for our audience? Perhaps everyone saw when volunteers or air forces just dumped water on the roof, and there was some boy who got that water from an UAV. Do you remember some other interesting cases for during 2 weeks of your operation? As for me, all days were tensed because we expected shelling every minute. This is how it was. It was very dangerous to be there. Denise, have you seen any interesting cases? I cannot remember about any at the moment. We just supported our colleagues. We tried to cheer up each other. We talked to each other. We discussed some interesting views. Just not to be afraid, just to be focused and concentrated. So we supported and cheered up each other. Ivan, what about you? Perhaps there were some interesting cases with animals. Sometimes, when we were passing by a house, we could see some animals. Like in one case, there were like 2 dogs, but when we just were returned, there were 2 more dogs, and that was just rather unexpected. And we just took all of them, and this is what I can remember. Sometimes it was really very difficult because those animals were terrified, and it was very difficult for us to take them because sometimes they tried to flee. So they really felt very bad, but they were afraid of us, and we had to take some food for animals to calm them down and to take them. And one more question. You saw the consequences of the flood on the right bank of the Dnieper River, but according to the information from environmentalists and biologists, the left bank was damaged the most, and it is now occupied. It is not controlled by Ukraine. Have you seen any imaging, maybe something with UAVs to study the situation there? We did not have an opportunity to use UAVs there. But even from our side, when we got to the place, we were, of course, terrified because the yacht clubs, the factories, they were in a very bad condition. That was like terrifying. We have one more question from a journalist. You told us about people and animals, that what valuable things people tried to take with them. No, we did not see anything. And volunteers did not see anything. No. I am not talking about your officers or volunteers. I just mean people from who just try to take something from their houses. No, they had some small packages with money and documents. They did not even try to take their clothes. Sometimes they were evacuated in shorts, pajamas, slippers. And they also tried to rescue their animals, but we did not see any valuable things they tried to take with them. Thank you. Thank you very much for your story. We just also put on the screen your photos, videos. This information will be provided to the journalists who would like to cover this story. And the next briefing will be quoted to 1. Hopefully there will be no error alerts because we have several of them since morning. So please stay tuned. The next briefing will be in 15 minutes. We will have with us online Finnish volunteer who has been supporting Ukrainian volunteers for quite a long period of time. Stay tuned.